Okay, so it's all about life being easy and happy. Reverse suicide by somebody. Hey, Rasmussen. I don't know. Rasmussen. Matt somebody. Okay, so it's not a big poem, as you can see. We'll say. The guy that sold your car to comes back to get his money, leaves the car. With filthy rags we rub it down until it doesn't shine, and wipe your blood into the seams of the seat. Each snowflake stirs before lifting into the sky as I learn you won't be dead. The unsuffering ends when the mess of your head pulls together around a bullet in your mouth. You spit it into Dad's gone before arriving in the driveway, while the evening brightens, and we pour bag after bag of leaves on the lawn, waiting for them to leap onto the bare branches. So it's short, but I think it's quite impressive. What's your impression?
Alexandra, what's your impression? That's a good impression.
It is?
Yeah. Yes, that's even better.
Are you lost for words?
No, I'm just trying, maybe Sergey could go first. And
yeah, that's a good idea.
No, that isn't a good idea. That makes my life harder than ever. When I think it all depends on how you respond to the word suicide. And I can't say that very unhappy people respond to the word suicide in a positive way, and very happy people respond to the word suicide in a very negative way. I don't really think it depends on the level of satisfaction with your own life. So the first thing I had in mind when reading the text was the reverse suicide. But of course, you can't really understand what reverse suicide is unless you've read the entire poem. But I've been writing a lot about reverse discrimination lately, just because someone asked me to give a hand with the topic. And reverse discrimination is usually described as something bad, something that is not
what is
better.
Reverse discrimination? Is like, oh, that's because I'm white, eh?
That's what happens if some blacks were not allowed entering to prestigious American schools and universities some time ago. The situation has been reversed due to affirmative action, where there are special quotas, which are not really quotas, because quotas are unconstitutional in the United States, that allow universities to admit more blacks. No matter whether they're capable or not capable of attending higher school. The problem with it is, of course, that some whites complain they were denied admittance because some blacks were preferred, and they call it reverse discrimination.
Which it is.
Which it is to a certain extent, but it's usually characterizes something that you want to be very critical about. So when you encounter the word reverse, which is already negative,
is it? It's not negative.
I mean, when I encountered this word, and I've been writing lots of things
In your
about this.
context, it's negative
my
in your context.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. And when you also encounter the word suicide,
Mhm.
which is colored in very black colors in my context,
Mhm.
so when these words meet together, you have something explosive coming your way. So that was my initial response to it.
Yeah, because the first thing we see is the title. Of course, it's important. It's important. Alexander, what's your impression of the title?
Well, I think that there is this method in cinema when you see the picture of some kind of action and it goes backwards.
Yeah.
And it's a slow motion. And it is used for some reason, and mostly for us, so we could notice little things who of these main heroes does what, the look in their faces, their actions, the environment. So it is made especially with an intention, so we would pay closer attention to this overall thing. So we would notice every little detail because for some reason it's very important. So, and it also made, so we could look different at things which happened because they not that understandable or clear because there is some double meaning in everything that happened.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought when we read this poem and about reverse suicide. So, it's a very common method actually in cinema, in TV shows.
It is. It's a very simple trick.
Yeah.
And very effective.
So it is, for example, there is a new TV show, well, it's not new, but it's recent. It's called 13 Reasons, maybe 13 Reasons for My Death. So it's about a girl in high school. She committed suicide, and she recorded 13 tapes where she described why she did that. So in the first episode, she's already dead. So we know that she died. She committed suicide. And step by step, we understand why she did that. And it involves a lot of people. And we understand that each of them had affection on her decision overall. So it's it's a little bit of a Shakespeare. So some drama happened, but this drama happened because a lot of things happened, like a lot of things, a thousand of things, and they all connected and they all affected each other in some point. So
was the girl right in taking her own life?
It's not about being right or wrong. It's about that a lot of people who surrounded her influenced her. One guy raped her. The other guy did terrible things to her. People harassed her, bullied her, and because of that, she did that. I'm not saying that what she did was right or wrong, but all these people influenced on her and her decision. And
but if it wasn't wrong, then probably they did a good thing. So
okay, we're not talking about the girl. We're talking about the poem.
About the poem, okay. We're talking about the poem. So again, this is something. Is it something that you have right to, or is it something that?
So suicide is in itself a big subject. Obviously, you always have some people who would say, "Oh, it's your own life. You can do what you like with it, including taking it." There will always be people who say, "No, your life is not yours. It was given to you by some force, by God, by whatever. So you cannot take it by your parents, if nothing else." So you cannot take it away because it doesn't belong to you in the first place. Personally, I suppose that suicide is a very stupid idea. You're not supposed to do it. Really.
Yeah, but then again, your critics might say, siding with the girl Alexandra mentioned, that it's easy to say something when you are not faced with the circumstances that this girl faced, and probably with the circumstances that the man in the poem faced. If it were a man, it might have been a woman or someone. in the poem. And then things get reversed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Which
it's a good
that's
it's a good question. Is it a man? Is it a woman? We don't know. We don't know.
And the problem is, of course, the second problem is, as you have read the poem through the poem, you know what the Mr. Matt Rasmussen meant by reverse suicide, but you also know that it can happen in film in slow motion. It can happen in TV shows. It can happen on YouTube. It can't happen in real life.
Oh, who says so? Who says? But let's get back to the title.
Yeah.
Who? Newton. Newton.
Yeah,
Einstein. Oh, get away with it. Who cares? What do we know? It's all quantum. Oh, it's not fixed. It's not rigid. Time is changing all the time. So reverse suicide. What do we have here first? Reverse, backwards, reverse, and we have the word verse in it, like a poem. A suicide, which is turned into a verse, reversed, undone, and turned into a poem. So the poison is taken out of it by reversing it, inversing it. But then again, yeah, suicide, which is like a very bad idea. Oh dear. Yeah, so we have the word verse in reverse. Now, we have suicide. We don't know who did it. I imagine it was a brother, but maybe that was a sister. Because they say dad.
Yeah, because there's family involved. A question. Maybe it's too soon to begin asking questions. But
Never too soon. Not too early.
I need your expertise, both of you. Yes. So imagine there's this therapist's hotline where people phone in thinking of committing a suicide. Would you recommend them to read this poem or not? If your task on the other side of the line is to prevent a possible suicide.
No, I would not.
Okay.
What's the point? What would be the point?
I mean, sometimes what these people do, and again, we are concentrating on the word suicide, so I think it might be relevant to the forthcoming discussion.
Then again, it always depends on the situation. I don't know. I never came across suicidal people. I don't know how to talk to them. I have a friend who did it actually, who saved a few people from suicide. He spoke to them. He's good at speaking. He's good at talking. He knows people, so he knew what to tell them. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Now, reverse. So we have something as horrible as suicide. Obviously, when we have like suicide and it's not an accident, it's not a murder, it's a suicide, something that the person does to him herself. Yeah, that's why it's called suicide. So why would we talk about, if we need a death, which we want to reverse, why would we talk about suicide specifically? Why not an accident? Car accident would do. Why suicide?
Because it probably assumes that there's what Alexandra has called an intention on part of the person who commits suicide, who takes his or her own life. And there's no intention in the accident, or at least not usually it's not someone's intention to have an accident, because if it is, then it's basically a form of a suicide. Yeah. And what was the other option? A car accident. Well, basically, a car accident or any other sort of accident might happen unintentionally. You can always blame someone for drunk driving, but then again, it is an accident of some sort. On the other hand, suicide as it is means there's a sort of an entourage you have, some people who surround you, and when this happens, they probably start thinking, oh, maybe I could have prevented it. Maybe I did something wrong to that person. Maybe, and it somehow makes this entourage responsible for what happened, no matter whether they were responsible or not in the first place. Alexandra mentioned this film. I think there's also a famous British play and a few films based on it about a police inspector arriving at a nice middle-class house to investigate the suicide of one of their mates. And again, it emerges in the play that everyone was implicated in what was a suicide.
Okay, good.
And it emerges that it was sort of a bad dream. The inspector never arrived. They were never implicated in it. It never happened. So they are happy again.
Oh,
They
you
are
should watch Sapphire and Steel. Sapphire and Steel. It's a really strange TV series, and they only have, I don't remember, maybe 6 stories. They're like quite long, but really strange. Sapphire and Steel. One of the stories was like that. Well, okay, yeah, so if we have suicide, then basically it means it was prepared. It was not an accident, not random. But if you have a suicide, then people don't just go and kill themselves. We have something dark lingering around. So the person is somehow unhappy. People around him or her don't notice or don't know what to do, can't help. So if you have the word suicide, you have a whole story behind it. Basically, what do you say? Okay, good. Now, we have something as grim and gloomy and horrible as suicide, and then we reverse it. We put it back, so the guy brings his money, leaves the car, we rob the car until it doesn't shine, and the suffering ends, etc. So, how do we feel about it? What kind of feelings do we have? When we have something horrible reversed, have you seen it? I posted it on the contact group, that clip from a Russian band. What are they called? Leningrad. They have that kind of a reverse horror, which starts looking really queer. So what kind of feelings do we get? Do we feel happy, relieved because it's undone? Is that what happens?
Well, reverse suicide can mean there's a gun in the poem, so I'm holding the gun close to my mouth, and then when it's reversed, maybe I kill someone who just sits opposite me. So
No,
again, reverse
you're not
suicide.
killing anyone.
Reverse suicide.
No, that's
You only
no.
read the head.
That's illegal. That's illegal. You can't say that if that person doesn't die, then he or she kills somebody else. That is not in the poem. That's just not true. What happens in the poem? We undo the suicide. the person is alive again. How do we feel about it? We know it's a suicide. The person was dead, then they reversed it, and now the person is alive. How do we feel about it? It's a simple question. You don't have to be a rocket scientist.
Well, I feel really weird because now I do know that this person made step by step, which led him to this crucial decision. And now I start to look at his actions, what he did. For example, he just, get out the car, or maybe he put on the radio. I mean, not only the actions which are in this poem, but I look at them in a completely different way. So subjectively, I'm starting to look for his intention in each of his actions.
So we don't really have much of this person's actions. We have just basically the bullet in her mouth, and the last is what they do, the family, selling the car, cleaning the car. We don't see much. We just see some crucial moments, something specific. The rest is our imagination, which may also see. But how do we feel about this idea? When you see a suicide, for instance, reversed, I guess it brings double feelings, mixed feelings.
Yeah. Also, when we read it, I felt like, they clean the car. Maybe it's like, they clean the crime of stain. So it was full of blood, full of mistakes, full of bad intentions, full of sorrow and grief, which led to this exact point. And now they clean everything up like it never happened, like it didn't happen.
Yeah, because they want to sell the car.
Yeah, and also maybe it's a hint that suicide is not considered as, a real serious crime. Well, I mean, I don't mean it, but maybe I just...
It's a crime.
It's a crime against life. It is.
But, it's very hard to find the guilty person, because who is guilty? Is
the
it
person
the
who
one
kills
committed
themselves.
the suicide? Yeah, well, but it's also not that kind of truth, because there is always something or someone who pushed this person to this choice. So it's a very tricky question, and I mean, you can't really find the right answer, because
it is tricky, because on one hand it's always the person, because the person always has a choice. On another hand, obviously, if the person is really pressed and doesn't know how to relate to it and breaks down, it's like in Bulgakov's novel about the lady who killed the baby because the man did something wrong, and she was punished and not the man, because it was her who killed the baby. So, yeah. But basically, you're not supposed to kill anyone, including yourself. Especially yourself. So, I guess how we feel about it, it's an interesting trick doing it backwards. So, if it's something horrible and dark, and we do it backwards, so dark and horrible backwards gets funny. It is kind of funny to see how people walk backwards, At the same time, it's magical, because we don't see it often in real life when things go backwards. So there's magic in it. Yeah, we have our ideas of natural course, which is in our minds is linear. I'm not saying it's linear, but we imagine it to be linear. And to go against that course is serious, is big, is magic. At the same time, first we make it funny, but at the same we get happy because what we see is, oh, he's back to life, which is good. But at the same time, it makes us feel all the more bitter because we know that in our linear reality that is not true. So we see this person back to life, but our linear mind cannot believe it. And then we feel more sorry because we see what could have been, but will not be. Something really precious and desirable, like life, coming back, but it's not true for the linear mind, at least. Well, obviously we read from the linear perspective. So what is the air, the atmosphere, the emotion of the poem? Is the person who writes it, is he optimistic, is he pessimistic? How does he feel about this reversion?
I'm not really sure, but I think he never expresses
He does.
his feelings. He does.
He
okay.
does. He does. He does.
He does.
Okay.
Okay.
Alexandra? Okay. We do have indications in the poem. So is it something that really happens? He met a fairy godmother, and a wish was granted, or is it just wishing? So let's have a look at it. So
What do you mean by wishing?
That's what he imagines. Wouldn't it be great if we could reverse it?
Okay.
Yeah, so like, the pain is too horrible. Wouldn't it be good if we could reverse it? Because obviously, if something like that happens and a person close to you dies, it doesn't matter if it's a suicide or some other reason, then your first wish is likely to wish it be undone, to have the person back with you alive again. So let's have a look. Does it even look like a poem to you?
It's like a white poem, poem in prose, something like this.
Yeah,
Well, it is prose, but it's just the way it's written makes it look like a poem.
Okay, that's again a tricky question. What makes a poem a poem? Some people think that it's just, oh well, if you put it in a column, then it's a poem. If it rhymes, then it's a poem. No, it's not true. It's not true. The poem is rhythm, first of all. Rhythm, pauses, the end of the line, pause, the end of the line, pause. Okay? It can be prosaic and still be a poem. It can be rhymed and still be prose. But at least what we can see clearly, that he's not trying to be poetic and clever. He's not trying to bring in some clever rhymes or anything. He's telling a story.
Or maybe he thinks he's super clever. Because he doesn't do that. He doesn't do what we expect from a poem.
Well, we don't expect it from a poem anymore. It's all been spoiled. So it's not unusual, because lots of people do it. But still it's significant, because when you do it, when you write a poem, you feel it, you choose whether you use rhythm, like clear rhythm and rhymes, and all is nice, or whether you use more like a blank verse, which is more like more natural, more like language that we speak. Well, the guy that sold your car to comes back to get his money, leaves the car. So that first phrase, that sounds like something that could happen.
Yeah, and there's nothing special about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's much prose in this first line. The car, the money.
Mm-hmm. It could be real, like somebody buys a car, then they change their mind, they bring the car back and they get their money back. And nothing mysterious about it. Yeah. And we start with somebody completely unrelated. The guy, who? Some guy, we don't know who, some stranger, passerby. Yeah. So it's like if you are the narrator, yeah, that's the narrator I, who tells the story, and dad is the next word, so we know there's close relation, so it's maybe a brother or a sister, or mother maybe, or somebody from the family. Maybe a mother, we don't know. So if it's the person who is telling the story, then apparently going straight to the subject is a bit painful. We want to start from afar, as far as possible, like talking about some guy who got the car. At the same time, we get the context, we get dad immediately introduced. And when we say dad, immediately we have the idea of family. And sold your car to. Again, even if you don't know the title, that could be kind of ringing the bell. Why would your dad sell your car to somebody? Why? But
because he needs money.
Because he needed money, but it was your car, not his car.
Yeah, but
so it's a little bit strange. It might not be strange, but it's a little bit strange. Yeah? Or something that doesn't add up just a little bit. It could be a normal situation. Yeah, who knows, but still. Comes back to get his money, leaves the car. So we talk about suicide, and we start with like business. Just money, car. Is that what life is about?
not really.
Mm-hmm. So selling, money, and we think, car, why car? Or what does it matter? Yeah. Maybe they're selling all this person's things, including a car. Maybe it's not important. But then we learn that car is central to it. Okay, he comes back. He comes back, but you will not come back. You're dead. Mm-hmm. Any more comments here? Mm-hmm.
No.
So we have the kind of external world and the family world. The car is, let's say it represents home here. What under other circumstances would be a home. So a private personal space. So it went outside, out of the view, out of the picture. in a normal course. Now it comes back. In a way, you can say that the car represents the person itself, like a home, house represents the person. So if the car is away, it means you are in another world, the world of the dead. We will not see you again. Now what I want to see is you coming back. So if we start with something tangible, we start with something simple, with the car coming back from the outside world of strangers back into the family space. Okay. And we have the end of the phrase in the middle of the line, and we don't care. With filthy rags we rub it down until it doesn't shine. Now what happens?
We clean it.
They unclean it.
So, filthy rags. We rub it down until it doesn't shine. So here something strange happens. So if the first phrase, the first situation could be a logical normal, then rubbing the car until it doesn't shine is a bit weird. Yeah? We have the word filthy and rags and doesn't shine. So this reverse movement from death to life, it's not all nice. It doesn't mean all gets flowery. There is a moment where you need to put all this filth back onto the car. Okay? So, of course, using the word like filthy shows his her relation to it until it doesn't shine. So the car was shiny, now it doesn't shine. Again, how do we take it? Is it good? Is it bad? How do we feel about the car that stops shining?
It's a sort of paradox, maybe, because what you expect is the rags are used to shine up the car, so it's shiny and nice and beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's what you expect when the poet mentions the first part of the action. And then the second part of the action leads you to an unexpected result. Instead of having a shiny car that looks like new, we have a dirty car that looks pretty old. And in terms of sales, car sales, it's obvious that you have a better chance, you stand a better chance of selling a car that looks shiny than otherwise.
Yeah, Alexandra?
Yeah, well, that's true, because to sell this car, you need to make it look like it's new, like nothing has happened to it, all that stuff.
So,
and isn't the words... I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
Oh, thank you. Isn't it... I think that there's something that you always hear from Americans who say, pointing their finger at you, shine, which means be optimistic, as far as I understand, means be optimistic, try to do your best, pay attention to all good things that happen to you, try to do good to other people, things like that.
Yeah,
and
could
then
be.
you have the car, and then you have the car, which used to be shiny, and then you reverse it, and it's no longer shiny and beautiful, but otherwise. So it's, again, it's not something that you are usually told to do. Outshine. No, that's never.
Yeah. So that shine was not real. It was only shining because they did some hard work on it. So if you apply it to people, then you can say they pretend that all is fine, they're smiling, they're shiny, but really underneath it, if you come back a bit, you see really, truly, it doesn't shine. If you reverse it to the original state, without pretending, it doesn't shine. They're not happy. They sell the car, it looks shiny. It has to. They sell themselves to society. They have to look happy and shiny. Yeah? Now it comes back, and beneath it we rub it down and we take all the artificial layers away. Beneath it, it doesn't shine, and it's better because it's true, it's real. Kind of reminds me of one children's story where they had some bandits, and they had a dirty car, and they only washed it on one side because that was the side which was passing the police. So the police only sees one side of the car, so why wash the whole car if you can just wash the side which is turned to the police? It's kind of the same idea here, but the society can see this car from different points, so it has to look nice and shiny. It only looks nice and shiny again. Rub it down. Filthy rags. Okay, and wipe your blood into the seams of the seat. Ah, good. Drama, drama. Comments. Wipe your blood into...
Because that's where the suicide happened. And what they sell the car, obviously without telling the buyer that the car experienced this tragic event. And then, in order for the car to look fine, it has to be shiny, both outside, and it has to be outside, it has to be clean outside and inside. And it's dirty, not because there's been a dog in the car, not because too many people used the car, but because someone who used the car committed suicide, and his blood split onto the seats, including the seams of the seats. And that's what they successfully removed, so that no one could really guess what happened inside. They could only see the shiny outside of the car, nothing about the interior.
Exactly.
Again, you might interpret that also in a more abstract way by referring back to your analogy with the person who looks shiny and smiling on the outside and who might have some terrible tragedies happening inside.
Yeah, indeed. Alexandra?
I don't have anything to add.
Good. So, yeah, that's how the story is unfolded before us. It's unfolded backwards, but it's not backwards in the sense of intensity. So why do we do it backwards? One of the reasons is because then we can have the culmination in the end and not in the beginning. Yeah, we are coming to the culmination, which is the suicide itself. So first it's just a normal situation, then it gets a bit strange. It doesn't shine. Now we see that there's blood in the car. So now we realize that it's the place, into the seams of the seat. Again, seams like seeming, appearing, the seat. So it's where you sit, again, your place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the themes that hold the car seats together, and we often use the word theme to talk about human society that is being held together by certain invisible themes that bring people together. And these themes look like there's blood spilled on them.
There was one, do you know Top Gear? Has anyone seen
the TV show?
the TV show, yeah? Top Gear?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was one episode where they had a look at some second-hand cars, and they just made a bit of analysis of what was left on the seat, what is there, and then you see the next frame, and the guy is wearing a gas mask and is in full suit. It's like, oh, if I knew, if only you knew what happened in that car, you'd never buy it. So wipe your blood into the seams of the seat. Now we have blood. First we had filth outside the car. Now we have blood in the car. So blood itself is good, because blood is what makes you alive, but it's not supposed to be in the seams of the car. So that's the first time we meet the suicidal person through her blood. And yes, it's very interesting, because we don't know if the person who is telling is a man or a woman. We don't know if the person who killed themselves is a man or a woman. We don't know the relation. We only know it's family. That's all we know. So how does it affect our reading? Is it important? Is it not important? Blood has no face. Blood has no sex, no gender.
Again, blood is what makes us tick. But you said that it's what's inside. The blood here is sort of inside. It's concealed in the interior of the car.
And not just in the interior, but in the seams.
In the seams. But then it is because we now see it. It becomes visible. And again, that this is not something normal, because most of the time we don't want our blood to be visible.
Yeah, so like I say, as the poem progresses, we see more and more. The car, in general, the filth, outside, external, now inside with blood. So it's getting darker with blood now. And we do it. We move it. Rub it down. We wipe your blood into the seams of the seat. Again, it's what I guess he implies that it was their fault, because it was they're doing it with their own hands. They rub it down until it doesn't shine. They wipe your blood into the seams. Why would they do it in a magical sense, in the poetic sense? It means that they are responsible.
Yeah, they're acknowledging their responsibility. And again, getting back to where we started, most of the time, under these circumstances, people do feel guilty, whether they are really guilty or not, of what happened. I think it's not limited to suicides, actually. I think it might be also true for any other kind of death, because still, you think about
the
it.
survivor effect. Yeah.
Yes, and but this is not exactly what we see in the poem, in the line that tells us about blood in The Sims, because there's nothing that really makes us think they regret what happened. They probably do.
Because they do. You can see they're not happy. First of all, they want to reverse it. They really want to reverse it. Secondly, you have lots of like unhappy words in here.
Okay.
Yeah. So and images. So you can see they're not happy about it. They care. They take action, yeah, because they care. They sell the car, apparently not because they need money, because they can't see it, because it's too horrible for them. Obviously, they want to get rid of it. But it comes back to them if they want to reverse it. It all has to come back to you. If you want to reverse something horrible, you need to go through all of it. You can't just send it away. Well, you can reverse something horrible, but you have to go through all of it all over again. That's the hard part. Because out of sight, out of mind. Well, it doesn't work that way. It comes back, again and again, like a bad penny. Now, each snowflake stirs before lifting into the sky as I learn you won't be dead. Why the bloody snowflakes?
Something cold. Something that reminds us of winter, dark winter nights, when it's too cold to be outside, when it's probably nice and warm inside.
Yeah, okay, so it's
but not,
cold.
not inside the car. Not inside the car, because that's where it all happened.
Okay, Alexandra?
Well, I usually see this method in cinema. When you have a dead body and you have a snowflake falls onto your cheek, onto your skin, and it doesn't melt. And that's how you know that the body is dead. So that's what I feel about at the beginning when we first read it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. So we have lots of snowflakes because he says each snowflake, coldness, obviously. Then what we have here, stirs before lifting into the sky. Again, what lifts into the sky? Maybe soul. So even though they try very hard to kind of imagine how great it would be to have that person back, still their mind, their thoughts, ideas come back to what's happened. And if they think about snowflakes, then if they reverse it, they come back to the sky, and that's like a soul coming away into the sky, maybe. Lifting into the sky. Who is lifting into the sky? Well, I don't suppose the suicidal person really lifts into the sky, but then what do we know? In the sense like dying. Stirring, again, moving, something that dead people don't do.
Yeah.
And each snowflake, it's like we zoom in. We have a close look. Yeah, close up. If it's a film, a clip, then we have the general view. Then we come close to the car. We don't want to look at the body. We look at a nice clean snowflakes instead. and we feel this coldness and despair. Whatever you do, the snowflakes come back to the sky. They don't stay. As I learn, you won't be dead. So it's like the image of being dead, like lifting to the sky. As I learn, you won't be dead. Contradictory. So if we read it again, reverse in reverse, then I learn you will be dead, and snow begins falling, which again indicates their emotion, that they care, they're not just, okay, good riddance. They care. Snow can be heavy, cold and heavy. So that's where we have the word dead. The unsuffering ends. Oh, good, the unsuffering ends when the mass of your head pulls together around a bullet in your mouth. So we can't avoid looking at it. And no matter how we try, we can't avoid looking at it. We have to look at it. And it's messy. It's not nice. Comments?
So, meaning we have to confront it somehow. Okay. In what way? So again, we confront it, and then we reverse it and make it a non-event, something that didn't happen, or what?
No, you make it happen for real.
Okay.
Backwards, but still for real. It's still bad and horrible. You still have to look at the mass of this person's head. You still have to admit that they did it for whatever reason. You don't pretend it's nice and shiny and sell it away as not to see it again, because that would be the easiest thing to do. No, you have to go really deep into it, which is the only way of getting rid of it, maybe. Because if you just pretend it never happened, if you pretend it's all nice and shiny, and you never look at it again because you sell it to some random guy, then it will never leave you.
Oh yeah. And then you might also find it really painful to concentrate on it. And I think when someone dies, his or her family and friends tend to concentrate on the death and what caused the death, what could have been prevented or something, and you can't avoid.
The clip. You can have a look at it later. Yeah, you can't avoid it, indeed.
And the concentration, as well, again, among therapists who deal with death and grief, there's a belief that you have to face it, you have to work your way through it. But then again, sometimes the concentration reaches very high proportions, and then you are unable to really comprehend what happened, and this concentration might be harmful.
I imagine it's like a ship that is sinking. If you are too far, you will not see it. You'll get nothing. But if you get too close, there's this kind of gravity pull which will suck you in. So you have to know your distance. Not too far, but not too close either. You have to know your distance, because death has a very strong gravity pull. It can pull you in very mightily if you come closer. But if you don't do it, then there's no benefit at all. there's only harm or nothing at all. So it's a very delicate art coming to look at death as not to be pulled by it. Okay. So the unsuffering ends, but really the suffering just begins here. The unsuffering ends, it's in reverse, means it begins, because now finally in the poem we come to the suffering point. He says the unsuffering ends, but really in the poem for us, for the reader, we come to the suffering point when we look at the nasty bit. And that's what poetry is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to take you where you don't want to go on your own. The mass of your head pulls together around a bullet in your mouth. So on one hand, what we are doing here is a kind of healing, reconstruction. At the same time, we can see how it had been done with a bullet in your mouth. And now we understand that the car wasn't just filthy, it wasn't just bloody, it was something much more horrible than that, apparently. Yeah. So, headless. The mess of your head, again, why? What kind of a mess of head? Physical, because it's blown up, and also mental, because unless you have a big mess in your head, you would not kill yourself. So the mess of your head in both senses. Comments? No comments?
Well, I disagree about a mess in your head, but that's again something that can't be disputed.
Oh, you believe that a happy, balanced person would just go and kill themselves?
Not necessarily. I believe though that sometimes suicide comes as a result of much contemplation and...
Well, it's a contemplation done by a messy head, so rubbish in, rubbish out, as they say in computers. If you have a faulty program, it doesn't matter how, if you call it contemplation, it still gets a faulty result if it was faulty in the first place. Oh, there's still a mess in the head.
No.
No, you don't agree. You think that a reasonable, happy, balanced person could kill themselves? Maybe, well, we know such cases when people kill themselves, but for some reason, not because they want to kill themselves, but because there's some other aim, like maybe they're soldiers and they're defending their country, or maybe if they die, their family gets some money and they need it. So it's a self-sacrifice, which is very different from suicide. Kind of. Maybe not really. Still. A mess of your head. In the poem. You may not agree with it, but that's what we have in the poem. In the world of the poem, at least. Even if you don't agree with it. The mess of your head is the words, and we have them. So it's a part of this reality. The reality of the poem. Again, pulls together something that was broken, messy, broken. A bullet in your mouth. Mouth. Speaking. Instead of speaking. Yeah. You spit it into Dad's gun.
The word bullet. There's this thing that's called a magic bullet that they usually say does not exist. So it's sort of a magic bullet here, isn't it?
I don't know what's your magic bullet.
Well, a magic bullet, meaning, they say, okay, there's depression and the person is depressed and you hope to give this person some sort of pharmaceutical treatment, give him or her a pill. But it doesn't work that way. It's oversimplifying things. There's no magic bullet, they say. And there's no easy solution. And again, here, the problem of the suicide in the poem has no easy solution. Either we can't explain it, we don't really know the details, and probably people who are closest to the person who committed the suicide don't know everything either, and we can't really reverse it, except in our brains. Well, so it is a thing that does not belong to magic.
I don't know. Well, maybe. So a bullet is something small but deadly, yeah? And it's in your mouth, and then in your head. But somehow, maybe it's connected with inability to speak out. Maybe there's a mess in this person's head, and instead of letting words out, they take a bullet in. You spit it into Dad's gun. Now we have Dad's gun. How? Why? Not your gun, but Dad's gun. Dad sold your car. We have met Dad in the beginning. Now we have Dad's gun.
Again, is it because someone used Dad's car and Dad's gun to perform the spectacle we are present at? Or is it because it's the Dad to whom the car belongs, to whom the gun belongs, and who did it?
Well, the car belongs to the person. He says your car, not Dad's car. It's okay. The person's car personally, but the gun belongs to Dad. So maybe it's a way of kind of hinting that it was Dad who was responsible.
Maybe.
I don't think that the Dad was responsible. I think if we look at this poem again, usually it might be this person's car, but Dad might have bought it. You know, because when you're a teenager, your parents, when you're usually 16 in America, they buy you a car, and it's your car, but they bought it. And also, when you're teenage, young man, let's call it young man and young woman, you cannot have your own gun, but your parents can have it. So, and also you call your father Dad usually when you are a teenager. So your dad.
Not necessarily. Some people call
just
Dad.
Yeah, but also, and your dad can sell your car. So it means that car maybe wasn't fully yours, and Dad can make the decision for you. So I think it might be a comparison line that the person who committed the suicide, he was a child, not because he was immature, but because he was very vulnerable to the outer world, because he was very fragile, and usually, you know, when children they experience everything more deeply, more emotionally when grown-up people. And the Dad, as an adult figure who could have prevented it, didn't. He didn't see it, so I mean, I thought that it might be that.
Yeah, could be. Again, we have the word spitting, like when you spit, means you don't really agree with the person. You spit it into Dad's gun. So you had Dad's gun, not your own. And maybe that's also significant. Before arriving in the driveway, so we can see here that this person was trying to get help from the family. He didn't do it somewhere outside. He came back home. Driveway is kind of the borderline between family and outside world. So usually the driveway belongs to the land of the house. It doesn't belong to like the state. Well, it depends on the country, but still the driveway is when you come home. So he, let's say he, we don't know, maybe she, this person stays on the border, and the driveway is neither here nor there. It's a border. But he comes back from outside world. You arrive in the driveway, yeah? Again, meaning that she is hoping to get some help from the family, but never gets it. Yeah. While the evening brightens and we pour bag after bag of leaves on the lawn, so alone, the lawn, alone, lonely, maybe. So that person sits there in the car, and they're just busy with whatever business they have, which is normal. They have their things to do, they have their lives to live, they have the lawn to tidy up. Yeah. But for that person, maybe that's like ignoring that person, even though it's none of their fault. Although they're just behaving normally, but they don't feel that something is wrong. They don't have that family connection. It's not strong enough to tell them to stop and to come to the car. While the evening brightens, again, like I'm trying to be optimistic. The evening brightens. I'm trying to be optimistic. And it's interesting that it all happens in a car. If you compare idea of car as a whole, because the car here represents like person, like a home, like we said in the beginning, then what's the main difference between a car and a house? Well, you can live in a car, in a caravan, for instance. Well, what's the difference?
It's mobile.
Mm-hmm. Or in other words?
Or in other words, it can move. It can, unlike houses, which are there and that's all the time and thus remain a symbol of something stable,
Mm-hmm.
the car only makes sense if it moves, if it's moving all the time. And that probably also means that you can't really make a car into your home in the sense of a place of refuge, a place where you find relief from your worries. It's just too small and too mobile for that.
Or let's say unstable.
Unstable.
So this person's private space, this person's life, this person's spirit, let's say, is like a car. It's like you're living in a car instead of a house. There's no stability, no security, no space. Yeah, no fixation, no place to belong. The suicide happens on the border, the driveway. Again, this all adds to the image of this person. As we pour bag after bag of leaves on the lawn, again, leaving. We had the word in the beginning, he leaves the car. Now we have kind of, in poetry, the same word, leaves, leaving. On the lawn, again, a lawn, or maybe connected to law. We pour bag after bag, bags of leaves, and you imagine big black plastic bags like for dead bodies. And the bag is like a next step after the car, even smaller. And in the poem they're releasing those leaves from the plastic bags, same as they wish they could release the body from a plastic. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. That's kind of the feeling. Anyway, it's something kept in, because leaves are not supposed to be in bags. They're supposed to be on the ground. Yeah? So in a bag means like in prison or in a coffin. Yeah? And they're releasing them, pouring bag after bag of leaves. Or maybe pouring tears, maybe, I don't know, on the lawn. Again, lawn belongs to a house and it's a place of order. Yeah. Lawn is something that people look after.
Yeah. And lawn is the place of happiness, where children play, where adults can probably sit and have a nice chat, have a nice breakfast, have something to drink, a place of relaxation, a place that's more or less connected to being happy rather than contemplating suicide.
Maybe. So the idea of the lawn is to keep it tidy, and when they're doing it backwards now, they're making it untidy. Alexandra? Alexandra, any comments?
No.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, there's another long song. You can listen to it later. Pour bag after bag of leaves on the lawn. Again, we have this plural, like snowflakes. Now we have leaves. We have winter turning into autumn, snow into dead leaves. We have the reversal flow of time in nature, not just in their life, but in nature, which is connected to their inner state, obviously. Yeah. And as if pouring bag after bag of leaves on the lawn could bring that person back, waiting for them to leap onto the bare branches. And that's really, really cool, really strong and poetic. Waiting for them to leap, or we are waiting for that person to leap, to come back to life. But where to? Bare branches. The last words show there's no hope.
That it means that we're not only talking about the autumn, but we're talking about the very end of the autumn, the end of November, when all the leaves fell down from trees. So it's this very, very blurred line between the winter and the autumn. It's not the real autumn.
Yeah, because we know that the snowflakes start falling just in a few moments after that. Because obviously nobody can leave after blowing their head with a bullet. I learned you won't be dead. Yeah, if that was a small injury, then maybe the person could spend some time in a hospital and they were like, oh, maybe she would live. But if it's a bullet in your head, then there's no question. and blood and brains everywhere. There's no question whether the person is alive or not really. So we are kind of, again, the same as in the beginning with the shiny car and unshiny car. We pretend it's nice and happy. We pretend, we try to be optimistic. We say, oh, the evening brightens, and we're pouring the leaves back. We are waiting for them to go back to life. Be back on the branches means be back to life, because as long as they're here, they're dead leaves. But if they jump back to the tree, they'll be living leaves again. But the branches are bare. There's no life in the branches either. Yeah? There's no hope. We know that we are only pretending. And we know that this is natural, that death is natural, even if it comes unnaturally in the form of a suicide. Death itself is natural because we connect it with the ideas of leaves. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So, what we do here is we are trying to go against nature. We are trying to go against the linear flow of time. We are trying to go against the cycles, circular cycles of nature. So either way, whether your time is linear or is it cyclic, you're still going kind of the wrong way. Trying to bring that person back to life, and you know you can't do it. You're not supposed to do it. But you still pretend. You still pretend. And still you have to look at it. You still have to meet it, to face it.
With definition of different stages, how you accept the grief. So at the beginning, you deny it, and after you kind of agree with that, and then you understand that, and after that you find yourself in peace. Maybe it is the stage of denial or the grief that you just deny that this person might be dead, and you just can't live with that, with knowing that he or she is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going against the nature, because you can't go back, you can't turn the time back, but still you wish you could.
Or if you believe it's natural, like with leaves, then you know that death is not the end. Yeah. Then you know that even though the trees look dead and the leaves are dead, then still next year the trees will be green again. But at the moment, but still at the moment the branches are bare and all looks awful and desperate.
Yeah, and the leaves will be green again, but the dead person is never going to see all these new beautiful leaves. That was his last autumn, beginning of winter. But that was also his last summer, his last spring, his last everything.
Maybe. Or maybe it's, again, the autumn and the winter, not of nature, but of these people, their feelings. He brings or she brings winter by death, by dying. And it might be eternal winter, like in the Game of Thrones. Might be eternal winter, because it was not a natural death. It was a suicide. So generally it's a small poem, as you can see, but he conveys lots of ideas in it, lots of meanings and implications how they got to the point. You read the poem and you have only the images of what happened after the suicide, and still from those images you have the idea of what was happening before it, how the person was unhappy and with this mess in the head and looking for help in the family, and the family never noticed it. Maybe not because they're evil, but just because they didn't pay attention. They just didn't notice. And that was enough. And now everybody's suffering. Oh, what a happy little poem.
Oh, yeah.
Any more comments? Lipping?
A question.
Yeah.
What made you choose the poem?
Well, I was looking through lots of poems as usual, and as I go through poems, I just see whatever catches the eye, catches the soul, let's say. Something catchy. It doesn't have to be happy, it doesn't have to be unhappy, just something interesting, something that you may not know what, but something that makes you stop and actually read the poem and look at it more closely. Means there's something of importance in it for us. That's all, because you have lots and lots of poems, but they're like nothing. They just blubber and chatter, and people trying to be clever, and they have no life in them. And then you come across a little piece like this one, and you see, there's something interesting going on here, some magic. Why is it interesting? What is the magic? What's going on here? Because you have lots of poems about death, you have lots of poems about suicide, but not all of them are impressive. There's art to art, you know? Or you could put it more simple. I choose the poem because that's what the Gnomiki tell me to do. Easy. There's no logic, there's just the Gnomiki. You never know. But if you have any ideas, then feel free to bring it up. Maybe we'll have a look at it. Any more questions? Comments?
You add the cake on a happy note. You add the cake. You had the cake. You didn't eat all of the cake. What else did you do on this special occasion to bring us back to life?
Oh, to bring you back to life.
Okay. What else did you do? How did you celebrate?
How did I celebrate? Well, my sister has some really interesting ideas about celebrating